Why should police in the United States have reason or any excuse to go through everybody's texts? Why should cell companies or whatever have to keep texts so the police can go and look through them? All of our calls are probably already monitored, as well as our emails, anything that we do on the internet. It's pretty much not anonymous anymore. So why would police want to have unlimited use of your texts? Why would law enforcement be lobbying Congress and the U.S. Senate to have that right? It's bullshit. Before 9/11, I lived in Stafford Springs, Connecticut, and there was cameras being strung up on telephone poles, and what were called gunshot sensors were on telephone poles, basically microphones. So they were spying on people prior to 9/11 illegally, and any of the wiretaps that were done by the cell companies where they had an extra room where all the calls could be recorded, information could be kept, so they were keeping that information anyway, illegally, spying on you, and nobody was prosecuted for that. They just expanded the programs and then made it legal after they were breaking the law. Well, anyway, in the town I lived in, plenty of heroin was being sold, plenty of crack cocaine, plenty of marijuana. I have a whole different take on, whether drugs should be illegal or, what should be done with people that do them. I would have ran as a Republican in my town of Stafford Springs, and really was pro law enforcement and considered being a police officer myself, until I found out that it's basically collecting revenue for each other. It's about chasing women. And if you do it legally, it's that's okay. Taking people's property. If you're not part of organized crime, town hall, the police, judges and lawyers, they're kind of little cabal, then you can lose your business. If you get mouthy about it, you can end up being arrested in prison, beaten up, or even murdered. It's not far-fetched. If any of you pay attention to the news, you're seeing more and more that it's anything they want to do seems what they're doing. There was MySpace before there was Facebook, and cops do troll to see what attractive young girls there are, what women there are, and then they're out and they're looking to find ways to get with them. And if it means using a police informant to see that they're out drinking somewhere or high somewhere so they get arrested, and then they're beholden to the police or a probation officer, and women can be used for sex, and males can be used by police to do beat up people, kill people. If anybody reads any of my blogs, you can see, there's more than enough proof in stories and wherever else. A lot more of you are getting it out there. But what did police do before there was MySpace? They were in the woods at lakes with binoculars, and the nice-looking girls in bikinis. Oh, what car are they driving? Where are they going? Follow them around so they can get laid. I was a clerk at a 7-Eleven when I was 18. I was in college doing my homework third shift. Cops would call Friday and Saturday nights date nights. They'd go out, pull women over that they thought were drunk, and they negotiate out of the drunk driving or the marijuana or whatever else by either performing oral sex on the officer or having sex. And in a police cruiser, if you get in the back, you lock yourself in. So one way of knowing that the police were having sex in the back of their cruisers is the back door on the wood side would be open, so the officer could get in with the woman in the back seat. As long as he doesn't close himself in, rock and roll. He did what he wanted. And that's one way you could tell when something may be going on with an officer getting some. It's disgusting. As far as half the money, allegedly, that's for heroin or for cocaine or whatever else, the police have their preferred drug dealers, and half of your tax dollars go for the buys, maybe, and the drug dealers that are out selling drugs get either the drugs or half the drugs or half the money, and it's about getting people higher up on the food chain. It's not about ever solving any crimes. When all these cameras were in Stafford Springs, Connecticut, was I safer owning a home and owning rental property and being married, my family? No. It's a revenue collection system. If you have a problem, you need police, and you say, please protect and serve, you ask respectfully. If you're not one of them, and if they want what you have, then they'll just go and take it. By not protecting and serving, and if somebody vandalizes your house, or you can be charged per day a fine, $75 per day if your siding or windows are broken. Somebody dumps trash on your yard, it's a $100 per day fine until you clean it up. And if they keep dumping trash on your property, if there's 3 arrests on your property, you can lose your property for under the nuisance statute. So all these laws are for taking your property. It's for collecting revenue and making you less free. So these same police officers that want to troll and have sex and take your house, if you have a Corvette and I had a Corvette, cops didn't want me having a Corvette, didn't want me dating, didn't want me having my wife or anything. I mean I didn't date when I had my wife, but it's just beyond ridiculous. A police officer that was my friend that I got to know him after he'd already retired. He was a narcotics detective in Hartford. He told me a lot of stories about organized crime. If a police officer goes after organized crime, heroin or cocaine dealer, he can get in trouble with his captain. The officers aren't getting their extra money. If an audit was done on officers, where the Connecticut State Police officer who shot up a courthouse, shot his wife's lawyer, then shot himself, he had hundreds of thousands of dollars of unexplained cash. Why wasn't there anything ever said about that? Judges, the bonds, those municipal bonds and other ways, if they're let in on where they borrow money, or actually they lend out money and they get back at high interest, and they know about these little tricks for making all sorts of money, so they owe people favors. And a lot of, like in New York and Maine and other areas, if the judge has a realtor for a wife or a realtor in the family, when property gets taken away, who's getting rich? The judge, the judge's family. It's all a bunch of bullshit. And when did it start? I don't know everything, but I'm assuming that the banks in London, doesn't mean that you're English, whatever else. I mean, a lot of the international bankers, that's their center. And, what they say goes. I think they run our government. I don't think London runs. I mean, the bankers and the corporate pirates. And since they make the courts rigged, the police are rigged for them, and they're paying them with, their bogus money, Federal Reserve note. So the police are owned, the judges are bribed, the government, our Congress, U.S. Senate, they're beholden to to the international banks and the corporate pirates. If you contact them, like I contacted Dodd before 9/11, I had some issues with drugs being sold on my property or near my property. I didn't like it, and police were refusing to do anything for me. And they were basically aiding prostitution, aiding drug dealing, and revenue collecting, property confiscating. And so by getting hold of U.S. Senator Dodd, police came around and started threatening me. It told me I wasn't allowed to talk to elected officials. There's a lot more to the story, but if you say anything, in America you're supposed to have free speech. So part of the First Amendment is you can go to an elected official with your grievances. So the elected officials contact the police with your grievances. So at roll call, police have your picture, have a description of your vehicle, and they could have other departments getting your information too. So wherever you go to work, they're trying to make you lose your job. They're trying to break up your marriage. They want you to lose your kids, your house. It just doesn't stop. I had a $140,000 equity on 3 of my houses. So I was doing a painting contractor, a little bit in Connecticut, most of it was in Mass. And with the 6% you charge for taxes for your work, so I got a bill for 3 months for $140,000. So how many millions of dollars would I have had to make myself painting in order to come up with owing the state $140,000? So that was just one of the schemes they were. And I had problems with the health inspector, the building inspector, being followed around to and from work. They tried to get me to put $30,000 worth of sewer pipes in one of my houses. Just they try to bleed you dry if you say anything. It's like a gang. And fast forward 10 years, I don't have my daughter in my life. I can't even talk to my father because he think he's FBI Junior, G-Man Junior or something with a plastic badge and handcuffs, where he has to tell on me if I have a girlfriend, a job, a place to live, something to drive. I guess he thinks that, if the police are asking questions, even if I say they're, harassing me for, I'm not breaking any laws, he'll give them information. And maybe not his fault, but, if you believe in America, you believe in the police, and you believe in the courts, or give them information. If I was Jewish in Nazi Germany during World War II, my father would have turned me into the Nazis. There you go. Well, that's a whole other story. I don't know. Again, okay, we're talking about Nazis. Goebbels, that guy, the propaganda minister for the Nazis, he was married, and he would show up, whoever had a nice daughter or whatever else, he would show up and want to take the daughter away and threaten the father. And it's getting to that point now in the U.S. Police, soldiers, and important people can show up, take your wife, your daughter, your mother, whatever, get in the way, and they'll ruin your life. Nothing is yours. I mean, if they hold a paper on whatever you supposedly own, your car, your house, your bank account can be seized, and they want to check all your texts. And it's not for your protection. And on buses, they want to have 24-hour recording all the time of all conversation on buses. And why not in trains and airplanes? Are they already doing that? You're on video, you're being recorded, and have a baby like in the UK. They want to put a camera in the baby's room and in your house with audio to make sure that you're not abusing your own kid. You're not allowed to grow your own food. You're a criminal. Louisiana, go to buy a lawnmower or something from your neighbor at a tag sale. You're a criminal because the banks want to be part of the transaction. The international banks. I'm just disgusted. I mean, my grandfather took me for a ride when, 1970, 72, 74, I don't know, out in his pickup out in Fargo, North Dakota. And he told me, what the banks, the international banks and corporations were doing to farmers, they basically paid, they weren't willing to pay market value for what was grown on the farms. So if the corporation banks own the processing where grain is stored, and all the different cogs in the wheel, they can pay a lot less for a product. And so it's like the richest gambler wins in that situation, not the most skilled. So what the banks were doing is they had farms too, so they would sell their grain at almost zero. So farmers couldn't afford to lose money for a year or two, so they went belly up. In the United States, what do you see? All these small farm barns rotting into the ground. And you see factories like in Chicopee. There's a Uniroyal where it made tires. I believe it's Uniroyal. And it took me maybe a half hour to walk from one end of the factory complex to the other. Just massive. There's a big clock there. Plenty of, the number of bricks. You could build a town with or more so than what it was for the factory. It was just truly massive. So what is the U.S. producing? What are we producing? We're just one big self-propelled stomach. Yeah, I'm overweight too. Yeah, okay. But I don't know. It's the people who are running things. They don't want you talking to your neighbors. They want you just to obey. And as your quality of life goes down, and you have less and less, they want to identify the people that are the leaders and who will complain. So the U.S. is a slave camp. So yeah, you shouldn't mind that they are part of all your texts, all your calls. They're in your bedroom, they're in your house, your kids aren't yours and you don't own anything. That's okay, right? Yeah, great. Wave the flag. Or if you don't agree, do something.